Good evening, everyone. I, for one, am very excited for today's webinar. We're fortunate to have Todd Hooker and Katie Light from the Williams Formula One racing team joining us tonight. With us also is Girls on Track Ambassador Nadine Armstrong, who's going to lead tonight's webinar. For those who don't know me, my name is Priyanka Chadha. I am the National Participation Lead at Motorsport Australia, and I manage the Girls on Track program. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are all dialing in for, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past and present. I'd also like to thank Super Cheap Auto for hosting tonight's webinar. Nadine, over to you.
Thank you, Priyanka. And I'd like to echo that we are really privileged to have Todd and Katie with us this evening, both from Williams. Todd is the Talent Acquisition Manager and Katie is the Early Careers Program Lead. So it's fair to say they've seen a few resumes in their time, I suspect, on the daily, I suspect. So we're really excited to hear your thoughts around resume writing, our topic for this evening. We have a really engaged Girls on Track community in Australia, and they're at the point where a lot of them are quite eager to, get ready to work in motorsport. This evening is specifically designed for our Pathways group. So typically girls aged from 15 to around 22. So some are still at school, some would have been at uni or left their studies. So while they may have the skills and may have done some of the subjects to get into a job in motorsport, they certainly won't have any lengthy experience in the real world, so actual work experience. So it can be a bit tricky crafting a resume based on very little actual work experience. So this evening we hope to go through a resume, what a good one looks like, what should be involved. We're going to look at a couple of dummy resumes and we're going to get both Todd and Katie to talk through those. So what stands out, what's good and bad, what you should emphasize. At the end of the day, the resume is just sort of one of the steps to getting you hopefully a face-to-face interview. So that, that's the time to talk yourself up, which a lot of people are not great at doing, but how do you display your skills on paper? And ultimately make sure that it matches the right position that you're going for. So before we jump into that, Todd and Katie, I might get you both just to give us a brief overview of your career and your current role at Williams.
Katie?
So hi guys, I'm Katie. So I started at Williams back in 2020. I actually came through one of our graduate programs. I went to university. I studied sport, health and exercise science. So not the traditional sport, health and exercise science that a lot of people might think about. Mine was more towards social science and around why people do things and why people get involved in sport, why people don't get involved in sport. And I went into that because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I loved sport. I knew I liked that side of working out why people do certain things. So I went to university and it was a 4-year course. One of them was industrial placement, which we'll come back to later. So it's a year in industry. And then I applied for one of our graduate programs, which is a business graduate, which again, we'll explain later. And in that, you do some rotations around the business within the business services side. So not technical, not mechanical engineering, not that sort of side. Obviously, I didn't have the skills and knowledge and understanding to be able to do that side. But I started off in marketing and commercial. And that was a really, really interesting year. It was during COVID is when I started. And then I went into finance, did a rotation in there. Again, seeing a very different side of the business. Maths is not my strong point. That's safe to say, but it was really interesting, really good to understand how that side works. And then I went back, did a bit more in marketing commercial and ended up in HR. Get involved in lots of different things. In that, it's the beauty of that program is you can kind of dabble, use your strengths, your skill sets in different ways in them departments. You get connections across the business until I kind of settled into this role. There was a gap and I dived straight for it, and I've been doing this ever since the beginning of the year. I started off as a coordinator and then it got upped up a little bit until became the lead back in March. I'm going to say April, maybe. No, I think it might have been September. I can't remember. It's all blurred.
what month even is it? Who knows?
I did just have to look to see what the month it was.
I can confirm it's almost Christmas, guys. It's almost Christmas.
I know.
And that's me.
Hey, what about you, Todd?
Amazing. Yeah. So I guess I started in recruitment around 7 years ago. Before that, I worked in the music industry, did a lot of touring, a lot of events management, got to see a lot of cool places around the world, which is amazing. That obviously took its toll, and it was really heavy on relationships and friends and family. So I decided to have a bit of a career change. So 7 years ago, I decided to start recruiting. I initially worked for external agencies, and then 4.5 years ago, I started working for a company that are actually responsible for the catering for McLaren, the racing team, hence the Formula One link. So worked there for a year, then moved over to Williams 3.5 years ago. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a journey, and I guess it's okay to also have a bit of a career change and not know what you want to do. But we'll come to that again later.
Yeah, I feel like that could be a theme for the resume writing is always a bit of a work in progress. I think
For sure.
You tend to update at the moment that you think about looking for another job. So that's something we can probably talk about a bit later as well around the timeliness of things. But okay, we've got a bunch of questions. So let's get stuck into them. And if people watching have questions, we will give you a chance at the end of the session to ask questions of Katie and Todd. So feel free to pop them in the chat, and Priyanka will make sure she keeps an eye on them. So yeah, I'm sure you will have a lot of questions. The first one is really around sort of good versus bad resumes. I guess, do we go for the one pager? Do we go for the 6-page document? What are sort of maybe 2 or 3 things that actually sort of define what we would consider a good resume?
I think for me, we hear it a lot, especially when I speak to university students or younger people. I think there is a bit of a misconception that it needs to be on 1 or 2 pages. I think it short and sweet is great, but if you have enough to say and you've got enough experience, I've interviewed people that have got, had 24-page, CVs. And I'm not saying do that, because that's quite a lot, but I think if you've got enough to say, if it's 3 or 4 pages, that's fine, as long as the content's really good. Again, I think when you structure it, as long as there's a nice hook at the start that people want to continue reading, that's always really, really beneficial. So yeah, I think anywhere between 1 and 4 is okay. And then at the later days of your career, if it goes to 5, 6, that's also fine. Controversial, that is, but that's my opinion. It's all subjective. Again, this is why CVs are so complex, because everyone has an opinion on them.
And it feels like they kind of run a sort of a fashion. It's like, sometimes you get, keep it in 1 page and have a little paragraph at the start that's like sing your own song. Go to you, so I feel like over the years things change. So interested to see whether or not you can sort of narrow it down to the good and the bad there. What about you, Katie?
I think it's an interesting one because, as Todd said, it's so subjective. So when I was at university, for example, we had a whole team that helps you with CV writing and stuff like that. And if you went to different people, they'd give you different advice, which on the face of it can seem really frustrating, because you'd have just done the CV and you go, oh, I've done everything, all the feedback, you go back and then they go, oh no, I wouldn't do that. And you're like, but you did, they just said to do that last time. But it is really good to go to lots of different people to get all that different advice, because at the end of the day, you never know who's going to be looking at your CV. And it's as I said, it's subjective. So what they want to see will be slightly different to what the next person wants to see. But the main message is get the most relevant and important bits, the bits that sell you in that first bit, because that is the bit that makes or breaks. People do. We'll look through thousands of CVs, and yeah, we have some roles within the last few weeks where I am literally looking through thousands of CVs for the same role, and you have to get your main selling points on that first part. I'm not going to be going through 6 pages to be able to get to that. That's why that I should keep reading this. So yeah, that's really important. But also, depending on the different roles, something that I've noticed is some roles can be very different CVs, because of just the nature of that role. If you go into, for example, this is not motorsport, but if you go into acting, a CV for an actor is very, very, very different to what a mechanical engineer or, some people might have seen there's some really cool CVs that pop up on LinkedIn that people have done around from different companies, and it's for a creative role, and they use that creative energy, and that's the sort of thing that you should be doing. Use your strengths, show your personality through your CV, because that's what makes a difference. We can look through. We get a lot, especially at university. Some universities have a template. It will look on the face of it exactly the same CV, and especially at a younger age, sometimes there's not a lot of differential between one person and another person. So use what makes you you, because every single person is different. Every single person's unique. So show your personality in that CV. It should be a replicate of you. It should be presenting the best of you. So yeah, that would be my bit of that.
And I think that's really tricky, going back again to the girls that are that we're trying to speak to this evening, that if you're a 21 or 22-year-old girl that doesn't have a huge amount of work experience, how do you showcase yourself in that first page or so? What are the things that do you talk about? Your leadership skills, or the fact that you were on the team, the school rowing team, or that you were the debating captain. How does a young girl keen on the industry show her passion, but also her skills that she can bring to the table?
Do you want to go? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think examples. So I don't know in Oz whether you have the Duke of Edinburgh. I don't know. It's similar. Like if you've done something in school, if you've led a team, or if you've worked on school projects or college projects, that you want to lean into them experiences. And I back to what I was saying about the career change. A lot of them soft skills I learned when music touring allow me to now recruit.
Yes.
But whether that's getting people bought into your ideas and negotiating and dealing with others and dealing with emotional people that are tired, it's like for like, whether you're dealing with musicians or engineers, in my opinion. So it's how you control the narrative and how you explain to people and say, this is the skills I'm good at, and these are some examples why I'm good at them. That's really important on a CV. Don't say you're really good at something without backing it up.
Why you're good at it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think.
Sorry, go, Katie.
I was going to say it is a skill in itself. It's something that it's not something that you're born with. It is something you have to develop over time. Practice is the best way to do it. Keep trying and keep giving it a go, and give it to someone, even if that's your parent or a friend or a family, and say, what's your opinion? As I said, it's subjective. And see what they've got to say. Sometimes it might not be the best advice, but it's interesting to hear what other people say and how they can perceive that. But it is a skill. So just remember that everything you do, every interaction you have, could be teaching you them skills that actually might seem insignificant at the time, but it can link into what a role or a job that you're looking to get into.
Yeah. And I think you start at a very young age to realize that feedback is a gift, in terms of, it allows you to learn and to grow. So, and sharing your first resume can probably be fairly, traumatic for some people. You're sort of putting your heart on the line and talking yourself up. But yeah, sharing it with people is such a good way. We talked about sort of tailoring, one resume will fit for one job. How much should people tailor them? Because the girls that we're talking to this evening come from a really diverse set of skills. So we teach all of the roles that come to bring motorsport together. So it might be media, marketing, broadcasting, officiating, logistics, could be management or mechanics or engineers. So how important is it to make sure, do you have, resume V1, V2, V3, depending on how you're going to tailor it to those different roles?
I have an opinion on that, but whether it's an unpopular opinion, I seriously believe that you could have possibly 2-3 versions of your CV, but when people have lots of different versions, they're not applying for the right roles. I think the role really needs to fit you, and I think you need to be quite self-aware and also conscious that you're not going to be right for every role. If you want to get into Formula One, make sure that your skill set matches the job that you're trying to get into. So we see it quite a lot. We see a CV that's for a marketing role, but also a finance role. And you're like, how are you going to do both of them roles? And then also an engineering role. So I think it's quite important to be really honest with yourself and make sure that your CV matches with the job, rather than you matching your CV to the job.
Yeah, for
sake
someone
of
that
it.
sees that many, it would become pretty transparent that somebody's trying to, please just take me. I'll, you know.
Exactly, and we love passionate people. You know, it's what we thrive on. But at the same time, people need to be realistic, and a company's there to work and produce something, or you know, so it's important that people are quite honest with themselves and they're applying for the right job. Otherwise, it does get dismissed quite quickly, and unfortunately, in this competitive world, that's the how it is.
Katie, how does that sort of play out in terms of your role in the early careers program, you know, seeing people that come on board that have a particular skill set and developing them in the early years?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one as well, because it's really obvious when people come in, and for example, when we have industrial placements, we have a number of different roles that are all similar, but they do vary. There are niches in each one. You can't go across every single one and be the best at every single one. But it's incredibly obvious when someone has blanket sent in the same CV, exactly the same. And sometimes you have to be very, very careful, because people will send in literally the same CV, but they'll put in it a specific on one of the roles, but then they've put that same CV for a different role. And it's that attention to detail. It gets flagged straight away, of, oh, well, they clearly didn't spend a lot of time thinking about that. And sometimes it can be even, we get some people that will put the wrong team in. They'll try and make it very specific. They'll try and make it, oh, I'm applying for this role at this team, I'm the best person for this, but they've put one of the other teams and a different role, and you go,
cut and paste fail.
yeah. And it doesn't, it's such little simple things like that that can be a make or break. And it's early careers is a whole different ballpark in terms of younger people. You're not your full you're not your full potential when you're even at 20, 25, 26, even into your 30s. You're not yet the best you still can develop. My main thing in life is you should always be striving to learn more. You should always be striving to be better. So especially at a younger age, there's so much potential. So it's something that we've got to look at in terms of its potential. Sometimes that person might not be the next Adrian Newey next year, but in 3, 4, 5 years' time, with the right nurturing, the right development and skills and mentoring, they actually could be, and that can still shine through in a CV. And once you get past that stage in an interview, definitely you can really see that side of someone, of that potential, and it's learning how to showcase that. So yeah, early careers are an interesting area, because you've got to think long term. It's not what are they now, it's what could they be. Yeah.
Realistically, how important is it to see on somebody's resume evidence of volunteering and, you know, interning, work placements, that kind of thing? How much does that go to sort of, you know, showing the character of someone, or the weight that you put on that when you look at a resume for someone that hasn't had work experience, so to speak?
So yeah, it's really important, but not necessarily on the face of it. Like, it's not necessarily you have to have experience within motorsport to be able to get into motorsport. You have to volunteer, you have to marshal. You don't have to have done this whole range of things. Don't get me wrong, that goes a very long way. Having that experience, it's in industry, is great. But we know that's not available to absolutely everybody. There are barriers there. There are lots of different programs like yourselves that do break down them barriers and make it more accessible. But there are some people that could live really remotely, and actually they can't afford to travel to that place. They can't do all these different things. But that doesn't mean that any experience and volunteering and work experience that you can get is beneficial. For example, you could volunteer, you have a local care home, and you could volunteer in a care home once a week, because that's all you can do, or once every few weeks. And you might think, well, that's not going to get me anywhere, because it's a care home, I want to be in motorsport. Well, where's the link there? But actually what that's showing is you're a nurturing person, you care, you're learning to communicate with a range of different people, different ages, from different walks of life, and different stakeholders. That could be you've been asked to go and order the toilet paper because you've run out. And then you're going to have to engage in lots of different people with that process and getting that in and sorting that out. It's little things like that that you might not realize, and you think, well, it's just, something I do because someone's parent might work there. Your parent might work, and you just go along and help with that. But actually, you're learning so many soft and hard skills that all add up to you and that will get you where you want to be. You just have to, as I said, it's that skill. You have to think of everything you do of, well, how can this be helping me? How can that be applying to that role that I want to do? So say, how would you link that into a job in motorsport? If you want to be a partnership manager in marketing, that's all about relationships with people. You want to work in HR, that's all about relationships with people, and you have to be a nurturing and understanding person to work in HR, because that's what we do with people on a day-to-day. So that has a link, and it might seem on the face of it not relevant, but it is. So anything that you can do, a range of things even, if you've got that opportunity, working in a library, working on these different things, doesn't have to be paid, can be volunteering. And even if you're volunteering because they're not offering a paid thing, that's just a whole other side of you, that you're willing to give up your time for free to help other people. That's not to say that, someone offers you, you can have a job, and you go, no, I'm going to do it for free. That's not what I'm saying at all. But yeah, if all you can get is volunteering, that isn't a bad thing. That's still a very good thing. It's all relevant.
And Todd, you clearly give preferential treatment to people with dogs.
Yeah, sorry. Cheddar is the third guest today. I don't know why. Every time I have a video call, he just pops his head up here. It's like, look, I'm cute, everyone.
Todd does always ask in interviews about dogs. I'm not gonna lie. So
yeah, again, we'll probably talk on it a bit at the end, but like showing hobbies and interests on a CV is really important. The personality side. So if you have a dog called Cheddar that you like to walk, and that's your way of doing cool stuff during the day, that you should say it on your CV, because then it's if you get to the point of interview, people can talk about dogs and they have a mutual sort of like or dislike. So I think that's really, really important. I think the personality side on a CV is really, and that is hard to write down. But if in your last section, if you write your 3 hobbies and interests, you could tell someone so much about how your mind works and what you like and what allows you to turn off in the evening. Dogs are definitely important on a CV. I agree.
I think that's fantastic, and we will talk a little bit about that when we look at the sample CVs.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of concept of you bring your whole self to work, and when you're part of a team, I think, and particularly again for young girls that are not talking about their work experience, but they can talk about themselves and what they do and their hobbies. Exactly. So it does show to the person and the personality.
100%. A team needs to be lots of diverse people from different backgrounds, different mindsets, different ways of working. Me and Katie completely clash, but we work really well together. And I think we always highlight this when we do any sort of interviews, and we talk about it. And I think it's really good. Katie has a completely different way of working compared to me, but it actually harmonizes quite nicely. If we didn't have different ways of working, we wouldn't be so proactive as a mini team. So I think it's really important to bring your whole self to work. I think that's really been highlighted over the last few years as well. You should really, really not be masking at work, just being really honest with yourself and saying, this is me, I'm pretty weird, I'm really odd, I'm very bizarre, and my colleagues have to embrace it every day.
I'm not saying anything.
But I think it's important to note as well that there's a skill in that in itself. And so me and Todd are completely different. We do complement each other in that where I struggle, Todd helps pick up. Where Todd struggles, I help pick up. And even just a sense of we're 2 different levels in terms of, if you think about hierarchy in a team. But I will still help Todd. Todd will still help me. It's a 2-way thing when you're in a team, but that doesn't mean that everything goes perfect for us. We will clash still, and it's that learning, and these are things that you can pick up in these other things that you do in the experiences that you have, is conflict management. Me and Todd have definitely had conflict, but a lot of people shy away from that, and it's something that we teach as well, and we talk about with our early careers. Is conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's how you resolve it and how you talk about it and how you deal with it. And like within our team of just me and Todd, we are now so much stronger in what we do because we can have that. We can have that then conversations. We can have them open, honest conversations, and we're aware of our differences. And if you're not aware, that's a big thing. It's about being aware of yourself, that you might at school or college or wherever you go have a thing about reflective learning. And a lot of people, I remember when I was younger, you go into it and you go, reflective learning, it's a load of rubbish. I'm not going to think about what I'm going to do, and I know me. But actually it's so important, and it's one of them things that it's a skill. But understanding yourself is the first step to be able to understand anyone else, because you have to interact with other people, no matter what job you do. Even our engineers, they will interact with a lot of people. Some people go, well, I want to be an engineer because I just work with things and I don't have to talk to anyone. When you go into motorsport, everything you do is as a team. Even if you're working on one little part, you're still, that little part makes up the car. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you have to talk to other people. Otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah.
100%. And then also, your colleagues need to be better than you, otherwise you're never going to grow and push yourself. Like my whole team are way better at certain aspects of their role than I am, and you need to embrace that. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. So again, that's why it's good to bring your true self. You can talk about your weaknesses. I actually really like it when I interview someone and they talk about their vulnerabilities. I think it's a really, really cool skill to have, because a lot of people can't do that. So say, look, do you know what? It says this on the job description, on the advert. I've never done that, but I'm keen to learn, and I've done something similar that's like this, this, and this. That's a cool way of framing it.
Yeah.
So you're addressing the elephant in the room. You're actually saying, this is a weakness, but it could be a strength in a few years, and I want to learn from you.
Because at the end of the day, it will come out in one way or another, and it's better to be upfront about it, because what's the worst thing is trying to hide things. Things come out at some point. And it's surrounding yourself with, like Todd said, people that are better than you, because that's how you learn. And even now, even before you're in a job, surround yourself by people that are better at you in something. And that can be sometimes really hard, because it can be very easy to go, well, I'm rubbish, they're better at that than me. But it's flipping that on its head. It's going, well, what can I learn from that person? Well, how can I do that as well as them? Because you're going to be better at certain things than them. No one is better at everything than you, because no one can be better at everything. It's not possible. So it might seem on the face of it, some people might seem like that person's got everything going great for them. Bet they get whatever they want. But I guarantee there are things that they struggle with and things that haven't gone right. They might just be better at hiding it, but that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I love that you talk about that, highlighting your weaknesses or if there are opportunities, because I think, we're very good. We think that our resume has to be the A+ version of ourselves. And, trying to portray that in an interview, I think you're just setting yourself up to fail.
100%. And for the record, my CV, my resume is really, really bad. although I consult people and I do this for a job, mine is bad because I've not looked at it. So, I think, again, that's interesting. So you think people are experts in something, they talk about something passionately and you go, oh, okay. But, I think it's important to note.
And Todd is terrible at talking about himself.
Yeah.
I have to help him sometimes.
We talked about sort of socializing your resume with friends and people that you trust, family, to get some input around it. But some people will go the next step and actually get someone else to write their resume. Sort of, you can employ people even to write a resume. What are your thoughts around that?
I'll go quickly at the start. We might have very different opinions on this. You might have picked up on some of these things. We haven't discussed what our views are beforehand, because I think it actually makes it better, because it shows them two different sides. Personally, I've helped people write their CVs before, like my friends and family. It's something that I'm naturally quite good at, but I always have them with me, because at the end of the day, I don't know someone as well as they do. They know themselves the best. They are the best person at selling themselves. But some people do need that help in terms of that assistance on how do I make myself sell myself to be the best person. And there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, on having someone guide you do that. But if it's someone that has no idea about you, someone that you've never met, someone that you're not with going through it when you're doing it, it shows. It's not you. And even if that perfect CV comes through and they go, oh, that's amazing, let's put them to interview, you're going to get found out straight away. And it happens a lot in any industry. There'll be people that on paper look amazing. They get to interview and you go, you didn't write that. And at the end of the day, it wastes your time, it wastes the employer's time, because you can only fake it so far. So it's having that collaboration. Like I said, you know yourself the best. No one else will ever be able to know you as well as you. And that's my opinion. I have no idea what Todd's going to say, but
I agree with Katie on that. I think that's the first time we've ever agreed. So perfect. That was a good answer. Yeah, completely. I think it's really important that if you work with someone, they consult with you rather than do it for you. A CV is such a personal thing. You know, we're talking about the hobbies and interests and experience you've had. You're going to know how it felt and what you learned in that situation. Someone writing your CV is not going to know that. So it's important, even if you're like me, you're not great at writing about yourself or even writing full stop. It would be, you at least write the bullet points down and talk through someone what you're trying to say, and then they can put it in a certain way. So work with someone, not get someone to do it.
With the applications that you see coming into the Williams team, is there sort of a theme, or are there certain applicants or skills that you see really fit well with the culture there, really fit well with what makes a good person a good fit for Williams?
I think it's interesting as well, because the thing of Formula One or motorsport is it's competitive. It's hard. It's long, like long hours. It's a very hard environment for many different reasons. No matter what part of the team you're in, and so there are certain qualities that, no matter where you work in sport, to be honest, they do kind of shine through, and you can see that in across sport. Like competitive doesn't mean that every single person that works at Williams is going to be the most competitive person, and you go and play football at lunchtime and it's win or die. Like it's not that sort of culture, but people always want to win. Like at the end of the day in Formula One, people want to win. That's why they're there. Like that's why a lot of people go into sport. But that being said, there are some people in the company that it's not that they don't want to win, but they approach it differently. They still have that drive and desire, and it's to be the best in something. So that might not be they want to be the best at, I don't know, they want to be at top of the podium. Ultimately, that is obviously our overall goal. But it might be that they go, I want to be the best at what I do. And that might be, I want to be the best mechanical engineer, designing the front brake. That was very generic. I don't know what the parts are. And yeah, and that even in itself shows this person has that drive. They want to be the best at something. And they're not saying, I want to be the best team. I want to be on the podium every single week. They're saying, I want to be the best version of me. And to do that, I want to be the best at doing this. So it's that drive, I think, is very important. And I think that is probably quite uniform across any department that we have at Williams, is that drive.
And I think on the competition note, it's worth to say, you can be competitive, but not with other people. So for example, I'm not competitive with, I am possibly a touch competitive because Katie enjoys it, but I'm not trying to be better than Katie at what she does, because she's great at what she does. What I'm trying to do is be better than what I was 6 months ago. And that's worth noting as well. And that's something you can highlight in your CV. Do you know what? 6 months ago, I had no experience, and now I've got a bit of experience. And in 6 months' time, I'm going to have even more experience. That's a great way of framing it on your CV.
Yeah.
Because then
Yeah.
you're showing, you're basically challenging yourself to be better. Hunger on CVs. I think passion and hunger is a massive thing we see within Formula One. People have got great minds, great outlooks and attitudes, and they want to do better. They want to work with 800 people to make two fast racing cars. There's like a common theme, it's really important. People need to be hungry, not for the canteen, to be better.
I mean, we are hungry for the canteen.
For the canteen as well, yeah.
And I think it's also really important to note though that every single person is different. So every single person that we have at Williams, they're all different in different ways, and we couldn't put everyone in a basket. We couldn't put anyone in one little category, because at the end of the day, and me and Todd are very big on this, diversity is key, and not in a sense of a tick box exercise. We're nothing for that. It's about getting the best people, and at the end of the day, diversity is that, because people are going to think differently, and if everyone thought the same, then we're not going to progress. We're not going to be innovative. We're not going to be the best car in 6-7 years time and stay there. You'll see in motorsport, teams will do this, and that is natural. That is how it works in any sort of sport. Even if you look into football, there's been no team that's been at the top for the whole time that I don't know, it's different out in America, but any sport, there's no team that's at the top consistently. But that's because people do change. But diversity is the way that you stay at that top, and we love that. We never go into something going, I want this person and this person because this person's like me and I want that. Because actually, like we were saying, it's surrounding yourself and complementing each other. And if you think differently, you're going to come up with different solutions. If you all think the same, you're not going to come up with different solutions. You're all going to come up with the same one. And if that's not the right one, it's not great, because it's not going to fix anything. So yeah, it's around being you, and you're not going to think the same as anyone, or as everyone. And that's not a bad thing. Don't try and change yourself to think, am I going to fit to what they want? As Todd said before, it's about being realistic, and is the role right for you? Is that company right for you? And there's something very brave about having your heart set on something and going, I want to work there. That is where I want to go. And you might research it a little bit more. You might end up being fortunate to have an interview, and you get there and you go, oh my life, this doesn't sit. Something might not sit with you. And it's really scary to admit that and go, I've worked really hard to get here, but there is no shame in going, this isn't for me. This isn't the right place for me. And it doesn't mean that job or that role isn't right for you. Again, it could be. And again, no, it's still scary, but there's nothing wrong in that. We touched on career changes and everything. But yeah, it might be in a job. I went for an interview when I was doing my placement year at university, and I thought it was great. And I went there and went into the place and went, oh, I don't like this. Like, it didn't feel right at all. Yeah. And when I came out of that, I went, oh, what have I just done? Like, if I get it, I need to take it, because you can't turn this down. But then I thought about it a bit more and went, well, no, because it's not right for me. And that's not what I want. And it's not going to get me to where I want to be. You're not going to be happy. And different companies will feel and fit with different people. And there's no shame in that. It's scary, especially if you've worked really hard to be where you want to be. But even if you just look at Formula One, if you go to our team, you go to any other team, it's all going to feel so different, because we are all unique. We all have our own culture. We're all doing the same thing. We're all working with a massive team of people to get two cars on a track at the end of a race weekend to go around it really fast. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. But every team will feel very different, and someone could be the happiest person in the world at one team, and then just the core values and culture and what that team finds important will be so different in a different one. And yeah, it's something that can be scary, especially when you're younger and you're trying to figure everything out. But everyone goes through that, and it's okay to be scared at that. And that isn't to say that you should go into it going, oh no, I could get to an interview and then everything's going to fall apart. That's not what I'm saying at all. But just remember that if you do get that feeling, then your gut feeling is that whole thing, gut feeling. It's usually quite right. So remember that, and remember it's not the be all or end all. Because that could come even at the resume part when you're researching about the company. That's another top tip is, research about the company. You're researching and you go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. There's no shame in going, okay, let's look for something else, because this might not be the right place for me. Not saying that we're not the right place for people, but we're not going to fit everyone, and that's an important part. I went off on a tangent there, but sorry.
Okay. On that diversity piece, but more specifically around gender, I know that in Australia, we, over the last few years, things have changed a lot for us, that there are a lot more young girls really interested in motorsport from a spectator perspective, but also, programs like Girls on Track are really doing a great job to show the kind of careers that a girl can have in motorsport. Are you seeing a change in the kinds of applications coming through that, the percentage of your male versus female, has there been a change for you?
Todd, you're probably better placed because I've only been in this for the last few years.
I think so. I don't have any stats on it. It's certainly improved over the last 3 years. Is it where it needs to be or should be? It's getting there. I think. I think. Well, I guess when we're talking about diversity, we're talking about people from different nationalities as well as gender split, people from different social classes as well. There's lots. I guess for me, when we say diversity, it's not always something that you can see. But yeah, I think on the gender side, it's certainly improved, and it is improving. I think making it an even playing field during the application process, making sure that the right person for the job is getting the job. That's really important for me and the team that work with me.
I think, it's probably important to know as well, like, for example, our industrial placement is a really good way of seeing it. We get around 26 each year that start, it's their year placements. So it's a good little cohort to see what the sort of demographic is year on year. And there's definitely more, it's not necessarily we'll get one here, one there of different backgrounds. We are getting a good split. It's programs like this that are really important because it's a big, I was going to say, societal issue. It's not. It's the whole of the world. It's a global issue in STEM, and it's something that is slowly changing. It's not going to change overnight. It's programs like this that do help change it. But it's going to take time. It's not going to take a year or 2 years or 3 years. It starts from really, really young, and these young people, young girls, seeing like everything that you do, seeing what's possible and going, oh, actually, I can do that. There's no barrier for me to do that. And as I said before, we don't do anything as a tick box exercise. Nothing that we do is a tick box exercise. We're here to get the best people. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you are. A lot of the time, that is a female. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a male. Sometimes they come from all backgrounds. It's that whole diversity piece. But it is really interesting, and it's interesting as well to see how dynamic changes with a range of different people and backgrounds. We have it when we do different programs, and you see it makes a difference, and in a good way. It can create, like I said, that them healthy conversations. Me and Todd haven't agreed with everything that we've said on this call, and that'll be because we've come from different backgrounds, we've come from different experiences, we've gone through different things, we've had different walks of life, but ultimately it makes the best thing. So you're going to have different opinions, and voice that, and use your experiences, use what makes you unique, because being a girl in motorsport, interested in motorsport, that's unique. That's going to put you different to someone else. Doesn't mean to say, go into it and going, I'm a girl, I'm coming from motorsport, give me the job. Because at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily, that's not going to make you the right person, and you're going to struggle. And I don't know about other companies in other places, but we would never hire someone because they come in and go, I'm a girl, so you should hire me. You got to prove yourself the same as everyone else. And a lot of the time, what makes you you is what all that makes. And yeah, use your experiences, use that unique part of you to do that.
In a minute, we're going to share a screen and get you guys to sort of comment on a couple of different resumes. But I just have one more question around cover letters. Quite often you'll see you must have a cover letter. Like, what do you put in a cover letter that wouldn't be in your resume? And is that a chance to shine in a different way?
So for me, a cover letter really needs to say, this is the position you've got, and this is why I'm attracted to the position. This is why I'd be good at the position, and this is a bit about me. So break it into 3 sections. Why you're attracted to the position, why you'd be good at the position and at the company, and then a little bit about you. And I think that's really important. So you can deep dive a bit more about, okay, I've seen this marketing job at this Formula One team, and I've done marketing for these projects, and I feel like I'd be good because of this, and this reason. I think a cover letter, that's where you can start to do your version 1, version 2, version 3, as we said about. So catering that more. Some managers we work with that hire people are completely obsessed with cover letters. They'll read them over the CVs. So they are pretty important, especially within Formula One.
Yeah, and that's your chance to show that you've researched the company and that this is why.
Absolutely. But I think it's worth noting on that. So if you were to apply for a company like Williams, I wouldn't sort of go on about the heritage and all lots of facts and stuff like that. What you want to do is say, I understand the vision of the company, what they're trying to achieve now, what they're trying to move forward with, what the infrastructure is now, the type of partners we're working with, why we're working with them partners. So I think gone are the days where you sort of explain the history of the company, and that sort of qualifies that you're good for the role. So it's founded by X, Y, and Z, and in this year in this building. I think it's really important to understand where a company wants to be in their journey. You can cover that off in the cover letter.
And that's, I was just going to say, and that's that doing that research, you don't have to necessarily put that all into that cover letter. Let's say that it does the job and you get into interview stage, some sort of things that can then come up just in casual conversation. It furthers your understanding of that journey a company has gone through. So before I did my interview, I watched the Williams film. There's a documentary, and obviously it's part of our history. It doesn't mean I didn't put any of that in my cover letter. I didn't necessarily really talk about it in my interview, but it meant I understood the company and what they'd been through and what these people that are interviewing me have gone through. We've been through a ride at Williams, and we still are. And every team, to be honest, on the grid have all been through their individual journey. So just to understand them and help you get to understand how they're thinking is really important.
Yes. Okay, I might ask Priyanka to do some kind of tech mastery now to share her screen. We've got 2 examples of, so first up we've got Rose Watson. Now, Todd and Katie, I'm not sure if you've looked at this already or chose to not look at it and just sort of look at it blind in terms of what stands out to you. So I'll just ask you both to really sort of chat amongst yourselves, argue if you like, the pros and cons of this one, even things like the layout, have they got the things in the right order? What jumps out to you? Is it one of the ones where you get bored reading halfway through? Just sort of narrate your thoughts as you're having a look through this. That would be really useful.
Cool. Do you want me to take this, Katie? And you can tell me when I'm wrong or whether you disagree.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think that the first thing whenever I look at a CV, so the person's name, that's your personal brand. So whether you work in marketing or engineering, your name is your brand and people are going to remember your name. So it being the biggest thing on the CV is usually the most important. So that's really good. I like that. I can see that they've helpfully labeled the email address and mobile number, but you can clearly see that is a mobile address and an email address. You can see it as a mobile number and an email address. So the M and the E you can take away because I think whenever I do a CV consultation or talk through someone's CV with a friend or family member, I always say, look, someone's only going to spend 6 to 10 seconds at looking at your CV. So you don't want to waste a second by them going, oh, that's a mobile, that's not even a mobile number. So I'm confused why it says M. That's wasted 3 seconds to me to try and work out why is that a landline number when it says M. So yeah, I'd take that away. This front section, so business management student. So literally underneath in the next box, I can see that they're a business management student. So they're repeating themselves twice in that sort of eye view. Also, some of the statements in that, I'm very dedicated and determined. It's great saying you're good at something, but as we said earlier, you need to back it up. So give some quick examples there. I'm currently doing this, or I've worked on a project where I was, had to be dedicated because it was really hard, and we got this achievement out of it. Again, saying that you've worked in a fast-paced environment, subjective. How fast? Is it as fast as Formula One, or is it faster? Subjective of the person reading, subjective of the person writing it. So that whole statement needs a lot of love. That's really important, because that section is going to act as your hook. So my eye would straight away go to where it says business management student seeking a position in motorsports. And by that point, when I've seen I'm a dedicated determined, I'd be okay. That's cool. I've sort of not turned off, but it's not hooking me in the way it should be hooking me. Where it says references, Priyanka, can we just have a look at that and see? Okay, so references on a CV, Katie might have a different opinion, but any manager that I've ever worked with would never ring these. It's quite old school. It's quite an old way. No one's going to ring Patricia or Ewan and say, what's Rose like? That's not something that they would do. A CV is really a hook to get you into that interview room. So I wouldn't include references. I wouldn't write references available on request. I wouldn't include them. If you want to give references, or that conversation comes up once you've had a few interviews and they're going to offer you a job, that's fine, but I wouldn't include them on your CV. I think it's a waste of space. I don't know if you agree with that, Katie.
No, yeah. Even when I was applying to things before, I don't even think it's necessary, but what I put was references available on request and a little bit at the bottom. That's not necessary, but I did put that a little bit at the bottom because I wasn't going to put. And also, sometimes your reference would change depending on the job. So again, it makes it more. You can use that part for multiple different things, because it would change depending on which role I'm going for. I mean, my background's quite diverse in the experiences I got before I got to where I am now. So that would always have changed.
So then if we were to look at the right-hand section, so for me, what you do at the team is always more important than the company you work for. And again, it's controlling the narrative. That may be, again, personal preference because it's subjective. But I would always, accreditation assistant, I'd put that above. I would have it say accreditation assistant, the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, then the date. In that order, that in my head, that's the priority. I think, again, it's your CV. You're the important person, not the company you're working for. You can recap that in this left-hand section, the companies you have worked for, if you work with some cool brands. But that's really important. Again, so data input. So when you say responsibilities include data input, what type of data were you inputting? How much were you inputting? What did that look like? What software were you using? What systems were you using? Who was the data coming from? Who were you having to speak to deal with the data? There's so much more color you can add on that will explain your skill set. So you really need to deep dive in that. Solving problems within a timely manner. What are the problems? What's a timely manner? You don't know. It's all a guessing game. So I think it's you basically just need to really, really break down what you're actually doing. Put it in layman's terms. People don't know what you could say, yeah, I'm really good at data input, but that's great. But unless you explain the process of how you've done it and what softwares and systems you've used, people won't understand and won't get to grips with it. So at the moment, that means nothing. That whole job, I don't understand it. I don't. It doesn't hook me.
Mhm.
Again, I'm brutal. Katie's probably a bit nicer.
It depends. I think it's interesting as well, though. So something that I used to use quite a lot was you get some jobs descriptions, or not job descriptions, but the advert that you see that you're applying with. Sometimes they can be really vague. Sometimes they can be really specific, and they have a bullet point set of, we want to see this. And if you do get one like that, or even ones that are a bit more vague, you can pull out them key points that they're looking for. And I usually use that. Well, I used to use that as a guide. So that's what they want to see. So that's what I want to get across, that I've used that in certain elements, because at the end of the day, that's what the person that's looking at your CV is going to look at. They're looking at, well, that's what we want. So how are they that? So yeah, I'd kind of use that as sort of a checklist. I literally used to print it out, and I'd go through and go, cool, I've got that. Where is that? That's there. Tick off. Got that one. This, and I'd do that for each bit. And yeah, and if it's a text, sometimes it's just a block of text. They haven't got a breakdown of bullet point to bullet point. If you go through that first, and you can highlight them keywords, there will always be keywords that they're looking for. And sometimes it might be a bit more tricky to work it out. It's another skill. There's a saying, I don't know if it's over in Australia, it's a job in itself to look for a job. And it is. But once you understand that skill better, it becomes a lot easier. It's like with anything, practice, and its skill becomes easier. So yeah, going through that and then highlighting what the main words are, and going, okay, cool. So it might have been in this, that it was fast-paced working in a fast-paced environment. Okay, cool. But not necessarily. Sometimes this is again another subjective one. Todd might have a different view on this. I wouldn't replicate exactly word for word what they've said, because that's just like you're literally copy and pasting. But using their language, and even if it's a similar style of their language, it really helps, because you're already in their brain. You're understanding what they're looking for. So using similar words to go, yep, this. Some people highlight it. Some people literally, if you have a bullet point section at the top for your key section, sometimes they will literally highlight and bold the words, more bold, the words to say, this is this. And they go, okay, cool, that's there. And they can literally go through and tick, like they as a recruiter can then go through and tick, well, they've got all of that, cool. And they're like, then they're working out, they're not working out have they got the skills, they're working out, is this person right? So you've already got past that first stage of, you're already in another section, you're into the next little bit of their brain process.
Katie, I guess that could be quite revealing from an applicant's point of view. So if you're trying to do that process and you're finding that you're just not ticking the boxes or not matching up, well, maybe that's a sign that this might not be the right job for you. If you're having to rearrange your skills that much that you're not actually addressing the job description, the position description, maybe that's a good way for you to have a bit of a reality check or to rethink the role.
Yeah, there is a line, because I'm not saying that every single person, like, it's quite rare you'll get a job where you tick off every single thing, and that's not a bad thing. Like we said, like Todd said, when you're going through and you say, oh, there's this bit on there and I've not got much experience in that, but yeah, as you said, if you're going through and there's absolutely nothing and you're having to literally manipulate everything you've done, maybe that is a time to go, okay, cool, let's look at somewhere else or something else, because this clearly isn't quite right for me. Or it might be that you go, this is for me, but actually I need to spend another year getting experience in doing this, this, and this. And there is nothing wrong with that, in especially this stage of your career. You've got time. Time is on your hands, and it might not feel like it. There are a lot of people that, especially when you're at school, there's a lot of this pressure. There's a lot of pressure, and it's okay to take a step back and go, breathe, and go, what am I wanting to do? I'm saying you don't have to get it right first time. Chances are you're not going to get it right first time. You're going to go down different routes, and that's okay. So it's just, if it is okay, I'm going to get, some people, again, it's all situational. Some people might, I need to get a job now. I need to get a job because I need to be able to financially support myself. that's fine. It might not be in your dream job, but you've gone through this application. You go, oh, I haven't got any of these skills, so I'm going to have to get a job here. But you can work on them skills so that next time a job like this comes up, you've then got tick, 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 because I did that in the last year. That's fine. And it's using where you potentially have got them gaps and not taking it as a, oh, I'm never going to get there. That's it. I'm doomed. You've got time.
We might have a look at who we've called Jill Langford, about Jill's resume now, which is a different one again. And if we could just do the same thing, that would be great, just to have a quick look through. It's a very different format, as you can see straight away, different focus on her skills here.
Todd's ran away, so I guess I will pick up to start. So again, it's kind of dependent on what role you're going for. So this person obviously is still at university. They're still studying because it says they're a current student. So it could be, let's say they're going for a graduate role, or they're going for an industrial placement. Like we don't know, because we don't know what they're applying for. But something that I find incredibly helpful, and actually this is reflected with we get at the moment, we've got a lot of people that are applying from Australia. Your education system is different to our education system, which is different to America's education system. Every country you go to, education system is different. And I'm not an expert on any education system other than, I wouldn't even say I'm an expert on our education system. It changes daily by the sounds of it. So it's really important, and also it depends on what course you're doing. So engineering courses, I did a sports science. My courses tend to be 3 to 4 years. That was for an undergraduate, a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science. I know that because it's what I lived through. But engineering courses are different. They can be 3 years, they can be 4 years, they can be 5. We've got people applying from Australia, and some of their courses are 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and it's because they do integrated. And as soon as you do an integrated, it's doing the undergraduate and the masters, and they might have done a foundation year before. So it's really important to put that end date, because you know when you're expected to graduate. You might not know exactly, because sometimes when you do a placement year, it's all dependent on if you get a placement, or it can change it later on in the course. So you can put expected, and that's completely fine. But for a recruit, it means I don't have to then look and go try and work out what's going on. When's this person? So for us, if you're doing a placement year, you have to be returning back to university. If someone just says current, I don't know if they're going back or not. And it adds that extra layer of me having to think, and it can make a big difference, because if you're not then going back to university, you're no longer eligible. And again, it can be to the point you go, this person's great, get them in for an interview, and then actually they're not eligible. And again, wasted your time, wasted our time, and taken away that opportunity for someone else, which, it doesn't benefit anyone. So putting, when your expected date to graduate is really important. You want to take away that thinking element for the person looking through your CV, because they look for a lot, and the less thinking you make them do, and the less questioning you make them do, the better it is for you. That's my first point. Todd, you back up.
Yeah, sorry. And people have to fill in the gaps. You've got to remember, sometimes CV reviewing is based on assumption. So if you don't tell someone something in plain black and white, they have to assume against you, because they're not going to have time to ring you to check. So, for example, if we had an apprenticeship and we had 600 applications and 20 of them CVs had missing information on them, we wouldn't be able to ring them 20 people to chase up that missing information. It would be the fairest thing to do, but it's not practical, unfortunately, with everything going on. So I think it's really important that you put in all the information. Did you, Katie, sorry, I had to dip off. So did you talk about if you were to have a GPA or a conversion university?
I literally just said what you heard about the date on
okay, the date ending. So on top of that as well, so if you, I don't know what university degrees are marked as in Oz, I have no idea, but if there is like GPAs, for example, like they have in America, we don't know the conversion. So the conversion changes. So it's really important if you're applying for a UK based motorsports team to actually say what it is in the UK. So where's a first, a second, a 2-1, whatever it may be. That's quite important. Again, you're filling in information so someone doesn't have to assume what it is or what it's not.
Yeah, and it's interesting one because, like, obviously I said we getting from a lot of applications from around the world now. At the beginning, because I was coming into this, I did spend the time going and working out kind of what that looks like in them countries to here, to help myself, because it was a lot trying to figure out. And I don't want to, my nature is I don't want to get rid of someone that's actually really, really good because I don't understand it. But that doesn't mean that every single person is going to do the same thing. And I can say for all the will in the world and go, yeah, I'm going to do that. But that doesn't mean that the next person will or the other person will. And I might not be the one looking at your CV, even at Williams. It might be someone else, and they might not understand it. So it's really important to, as Todd said, cater it to where that place is. And it might sound annoying because you're like, oh, well, this is how everyone does it in our country. But equally, if I was going for something in Australia, I'd have to do the same thing because for you guys, I'm sure you don't understand as well as we do our system. But in your head, you think, it makes sense because that's what you've grown up with, but we haven't. And some people do not take that time, so just make it easier for them because it benefits you and it shows the best of you. It also shows that you're willing to do that little bit of extra work, which goes a long way too.
And Jill has obviously put hers in a different order. So she's upfront with the professional experience and technical skills. And then on the second page, she's gone into the softer skills around transferable skills and then some of the achievements that she's had through her career. So a different order, a different focus. And you were talking about, own the narrative and own the story. So what would you observe from, the order that she's put things in there?
I think it's okay.
I was going to say, I've got one little thing. My one little thing is, on the order, again, it depends on the person, what you're applying for. If you're not going for something where, I'll come back to this later, but where education, it's not a university, it doesn't matter if you've gone to university. I wouldn't put that necessarily at the top because, again, it depends on the role that you're going for. If it's a graduate or an internship, yes, that's important because, as I said, eligibility. But it's not the be all or end all for a lot of jobs. A lot of times experience is more important. So actually, I'm not going to worry. That's not the first thing. Remember that it's that order that you're looking through. That was my one bit. Go on, Todd. I interrupted you.
I sort of hear both you quite a lot around sort of making sure that it's sort of fit for purpose, I guess, understanding, the importance of the resume's got to speak to the role, but it's also got to be sort of true to who you are. It's that fine balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And them transferable skills as well. I'm not, by reading that, I can't understand where you've learnt them. So, for example, the problem solving, being innovative, interested, that's a great skill to have, especially within engineering and Formula One and motorsports. But where have you learnt that? Where have you applied that? So these transferable skills, I'd rather see them built into your employment or work experience. Your work experience or your education experience for me, because then it's more practical. Same with the technical skills. So CAD design, when did you use SolidWorks? So that's the piece of software that people use. Like, when did you use that? What application? What parts were you designing? So again, context is important.
Neither of these resumes have a photo. Is that something that we do these days?
I'm not mad at a photo, but I only if it shows your personality that your CV is not showing. So
it's also really interesting, actually. What I've noticed is there's quite different depending on different countries. Some people from certain countries all do pictures. In the UK, it's not that common. And again, it's on industry, so we'll get some people for certain jobs within our industry.
Marketing, for example, would have photos. So
it's that fit, what the job is. It's, some people will disagree. It's one of them ones that's so subjective and it's tricky, and some companies, there's this whole thing of unconscious bias. So I'm not going to go into it, but it can fall into unconscious bias, and
Yep.
I don't necessarily really agree with photos, because the thing with unconscious bias is you have to be aware of it to be able to eradicate it as much as you can, and some people aren't aware of it, so they're not going to even think about it, and so if on that basis I'm quite against photos, because it's a big risk. It's a big risk of you never know who's going to look at this, and if that individual that's looking has this unconscious bias, and it doesn't mean they're going to do it, it's unconscious, so they're not going to do it on purpose, but it leaves that opportunity there, and you don't want to leave. You want to control what you can control. So that's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Denise, sorry, Nadine. So Denise has asked also, especially if the photo is participating in passion like motorsports. I personally would avoid that. I'd give that an extreme, avoidance, because what you don't want to do is come across as a super fan. I guess there's a bit of a fine line on that. It's great that you're passionate about motorsports, but what you don't want is someone thinking you're just applying because it's motorsports or just Formula One. Sometimes that puts managers off. We have people in the team that are super fans. We have people that don't even like Formula One, and I think they're both okay. But what you don't want that to go against you. Again, about controlling the narrative. You don't want someone to make the assumption that you'll be more fascinated by looking at the cars than actually doing the job.
Yep. There's
it's something to think about.
Yeah. There's another Priyanka, you're happy for me to go through some of the Q&A now? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. My internet connection's unstable, so I'll let you go for it.
We can see them. There's one, this could take us into a big black hole, but we can touch on it very quickly around, if you're interested in an applicant, do you look them up on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., to gauge on their personality? If you,
I've never done that. I've recruited probably thousands and thousands of people. I've never done that. That's not to say that some of my managers would possibly do that, especially in marketing. I think again, knowing your audience. So if we're looking at a social media executive or manager, the marketing team are going to know the name of the people that are being interviewed, and they will check them out on Instagram and stuff. I think a future employer of mine may look at my LinkedIn to see what I've been up to. So I think you've got to be, but again, I don't think for engineering roles or finance, stuff like that, I don't think people would be looking them up. I don't think people have time and capacity to be doing that.
But I think it's really important to remember, though, what your social media and everything you put online, once you put something online, it's always there in some capacity. It might be you delete it, but someone might have screenshot it. It might, it can be traceable in some way. And so regardless of if someone, the next job you go for, they do or they don't, something could come up and bite you. I mean, it's been in the news for celebrities that have posted something before they became a celebrity, and now it's come back to bite them. So just be really conscious. Something that you put online might not make it's like that make or break. It might not make you
you need to take down all your photos with you in your Ferrari before you apply for your job at Williams, right?
Exactly. but it can break your chances if you put something inappropriate up, and not just that you're wearing a Ferrari. We got a lot of people in our team that aren't necessarily Williams fans. That's fine. You don't have to be a diehard fan of that specific team, but you could put something that that makes it gives the really wrong impression. So be conscious of what you're posting online, but that's not necessarily gonna it doesn't mean that employers are gonna go, oh, this person's got really good this and this, but just be conscious, because anyone can see it, and that can go across anything. You don't have to be going into motorsport. It's just a really important thing to think about when you're younger, because you just can get carried away and post anything, and especially in this age.
Yeah, another question talks around that diversity piece. Talking about, is Formula One life suitable for someone with a chronic illness? And there's also a big thank you, shout out to both of you for your time tonight. So I mean, I know that talks around the diversity, but if somebody has, Taylor said CF, so cystic fibrosis, I'm guessing, or chronic fatigue, or sorry, I'm just trying to read.
So 100%. So actually someone in our team, I don't think she'd mind me saying, has Crohn's disease. That's something that we work with her and manage. She has to go to hospital for treatment every few months. Certain days are pretty overwhelming in terms of stress and workload and energy levels. Again, I think we're now in a world where we should be really kind to each other and give people the opportunities. I would never see that as a hurdle. I wouldn't. I don't know any managers. If I heard a manager say that, I would certainly correct them nice and quickly that is not the way we do things. So yeah, I think absolutely, yeah, you could absolutely work within Formula One with various medical issues or that you have going on.
Another one talking about the process. So once getting past the original phase and interviewed, what's an appropriate follow-up phase? So how patient do we need to be? I guess that's it's always waiting for the call, checking your email, right?
Yeah, so I think believe in your for me, I think believe in your application, believe in your interview. So actually one of my best friends literally texted me this morning. She's applied for another Formula One team. I'm not going to tell you who. And she's like, should I ring the recruiter and chase up? And I said, no, just believe in what you've said and done. For me, that there is a process. There's lots of sign-offs. There's lots of conversations that happen in the background. I think if it's been a few weeks, certainly chase it up. But I mean, if it's been a few days, really, really believe in what you've said and done, and let it pan out. Give it a bit of air to breathe. I think that's really important during the process.
Yeah. What would you say to someone like myself who is 24 and never studied a degree but has officiating experience along with corporate and volunteer experience in other industries?
Keep going, get some exposure somewhere, same back to the career change point that I said. So yeah, you can, as long as you get exposure and you're working entry level or doing something that you want to do, you can craft a career for sure. Never too late.
We've got one specifically about drivers, particularly as a new driver. It's hard to write a CV when you're relatively unproven. Do you have any recommendations or advice for new drivers for a racing focused CV?
I think your racing and your stats should probably speak louder than your CV. For me, I don't know. We don't really, me and Katie, although our job seems really, really glamorous, we don't work with young drivers. We have a amazing sporting director, Sven, that does that. He gets to go out and see people, kids karting and stuff, and all of that great stuff. So, I think the driving needs to speak volumes. You make sure you're winning, you're really focusing and honing your craft.
And it's also important to note that it doesn't we have our sporting director, that he's not the only person. He gets people that talk to him. So he might not be at your race, but that doesn't mean you go, well, there's no person here. You're always, everything said, the stats talk for itself. There'll be people there that are watching for certain reasons. You might not realize it, but people are watching. So just always do your best in that.
Yep. Got just two more quick questions. One talks a little bit about format of a resume, which we've talked about a little bit, but how much do you bother sort of with a header design and trying to stand out visually? People painstakingly figure out formats and change formats and templates, and how much of that is important?
I think it totally depends on if it's a marketing role. Spend some time on it. Show people what you can do. If it's illustration that's your specialty, do some good illustration. Draw the current car livery, or draw people in the team. Make caricatures of them and make a joke of it when you're submitting an application. Why not?
Yeah, have fun. Enjoy it.
Have fun with it.
It's your passion, so show that and enjoy it. Make it a project.
And the final question online is: do motorsport teams assist the right candidate in relocating if applicable? someone trying to
Kate.
escape Australia.
Katie can do that one because she's dealing with lots of visas and sponsorships at the moment. It's her favourite.
It is. It's situational. It's not a blanket yes, no. It is always situational on the job, on the role, on so many different factors. But yes, we have a couple coming from Australia, and there are things we can do to support. But again, it all depends on the situation. So I can't give a straight answer to that, I'm afraid.
How about this one? What are the different routes that Williams offer students after school and after university? So what are Williams doing in terms of onboarding and at that sort of, sort of graduate level?
Yes, so we have different programs where like specific programs. So this isn't involving like entry level jobs. This is specific programs we have. So we have apprenticeships, which is around school age, leavers, so 16, 18, that sort of age. We have, that's where you don't go to university. You go to study in college here, which is like a further education for a year, and then you work full time for 3 years within the factory, within the team, with going back to college to get the classroom based learning is still involved. And then you come at the end with a level 3 qualification. And then there's also the bit with university. So the ones that go to university, like I said, we have year placements. They range across a range of different departments in technical, so it's more technical based, so that's mechanical, engineering, them sorts of things. And you'll see a lot of them for different teams. That around now is when there's a big fluster for next year. So there's that, where you, as I said, you have to be returning to university. And then we have graduate roles, which are if you've qualified, you've gone to university, you've got your degree, and we have the business one that I was talking about that I went through. That's not specific. You don't have to have necessarily a specific degree. So I've done sports science. It sounds really relevant, really not relevant for Formula One, but we have people that have done law, we have people that have done history, like any sort of background. It's about what you learn at university. University is more than just what you're studying. It teaches you a lot about a person, and that person learns a lot about life. But then we also have the technical ones. So obviously mechanical engineering, I keep saying that one because it's a really easy one, it's very broad. But that more technical side. So we have them different routes in, and then in terms of once they start, it is different. And this is where it comes into my role a lot around the support. Because obviously you are younger, you're earlier in your career. It's around networking, and it's really hard. It is a really hard adjustment going into the world of work, and not just going into the world of work, going into the world of Formula One. It's a lot. It's long days. It's hard work. It's ebbs and flows throughout the year in terms of your demand in a specific department, because of the way that it naturally works. And it's around having that support, having these other people that are similar, going through similar things to you in terms of where they're at in their life. And so we focus obviously on skills development around what you can learn. For apprentices, it's very different to what people that have gone to university is. They haven't lived away from home sometimes. Even some university students, they haven't lived away from home because they've learned from home. Especially now in COVID, there's a lot of virtual learning. So it's around teaching sometimes how to live alone. We get some of that, but also it's taking it outside of work. It's not to say that I go down to the pub every week and go, let's go for a drink, but it's about facilitating that. It's around creating these networks where people feel they can do that. And as much as you're in a job for a job, your job, especially in motorsport and Formula One, it can very easily become your life. And you need to enjoy it. You need to have time away. You need to have, like we said about hobbies, you need to have hobbies away, but you also need to enjoy who you're working with, and have a group of friends there, because in a lot of jobs, you see them more than you see your family. And if you're not enjoying that, it's gonna grate you down, and you're not gonna last long in any job. So this isn't just necessarily in motorsport. So yeah, I think that's really important. So we take it away from work as well, and creating them social networks, and helping facilitate that. I'm not a friend maker. I don't force people to have organized fun. I'm not like, you will be here and you will enjoy it. Because also people enjoy different things, and we like to we have an early careers network where it's literally just the social side. And that doesn't mean just going to the pub, because some people don't enjoy that. I enjoy going to the pub, but not everyone has to drink. It's not like university. It's not like, oh, you have to do this. But we also do some karting. We do things away from motorsport because people enjoy different things. And I think that's really important. Everyone's individual. And actually, that's the really important thing. Our early careers network is ran by early careers people because they know it the best. And everyone brings an individualistic part of it. And they bring their passion for different things. So it's really, really good place for that area, and support is there.
For young girls in particular, motorsport and F1 in particular can feel completely out of reach. What are some of the things, or what is something someone can do at a young age to actually sort of get ahead of the pack, so to speak? You know, one thing they could be working on to be able to get there.
So keep a log of what you do. Like we were saying before, it's easy to do all these things and not, when you then come to writing a CV, writing a cover letter, you forget everything. So when you're doing anything at school, right, have a little list of these projects that you're doing, because then when it comes to it, you can go, oh, okay, let's look at this list. And it could just be a little notebook, a little scrap of paper that you've got on your desk, and you go, okay, so how could this help with this? And just keep that log. That's a really important thing, because a lot of people fall foul of not doing that, and it's really easy to then get 4 years down the line and go, oh, I do not remember what I did 4 years ago. Get involved and stay curious. So staying curious is a really important thing. I think learning, when you're at school, learning is compulsory. You've got to do it. And it can make a lot of people not like learning. But it's when you get older, you've got that freedom. You can stay curious and stay open-minded. And like I said, every day's a school day. When you get older, you leave school and you might think, oh, I've done with it forever. You're not, because actually, like I said, one of my favorite things about my job is I learn every day from people in the business, and it's why I love it. People, like Todd said, surround yourself with people smarter than you, because you're always going to learn something. So yeah, and staying that open-minded, because like I said, you might think you're set on what you want to do, but actually something else might come up and you go, what's that? And that could be when you're in a job and you go, have a career change, because you go, actually, and it's really important these days as well. It's a fascinating time to be coming up to this age of getting into work, because there are jobs now, there are going to be jobs in 1, 2, 3, 4 years time that don't exist, that didn't exist last year, that didn't exist 6 months ago. So what you think you want to do now actually might not be what you want to do, because something completely new is going to come up. So staying curious, do that reading around topics. If you love 3D printing, read books around it, go to the library and get some books out and understand a better, just learn more about it. Make learning fun and make it a habit, because lifelong learning will really get you far. And it gives value to things, it gives meaning to things, and you can very easily get stuck in any sort of job and it becomes a mundane day-to-day, just grinding out the daily tasks, and that might be for some people, but it's not fun. And yeah, I definitely just be open-minded and curious, I think.
That's great advice. And I'm just looking at the clock thinking we really, really sadly need to wrap up, but anyone that hasn't had their questions addressed, by all means, you can still send them in and we can write back to you. But we will also have this webinar live on site so people can go and reflect on it again and get their notepads out and keep writing like I have been. But I love a couple of the takeaways. I mean, thank you so much to both you and Todd. It's been exceptional hearing your experience, and the exercise of writing a resume is such a good learning opportunity. I think we can all agree that in terms of you keep learning all the time, go back and write your resume every 6 months and you'll show how you're developing. But a few points: yes to the cover letter, get to the point early, get to the good stuff really early in your resume. Don't keep people wondering when the good bits are going to come. Be honest, bring your whole self to your resume, because you're getting the whole person. It's not just the highlights reel. Keep learning and be happy to show that you're developing, that you are learning. So show your progress is something really good, and make sure you've got that hook. What makes you unique. Get the hook in early and get people to continue to want to read your resume and ultimately to want to meet you face to face.
Just be unapologetically you. You're the best you, and no one else can ever do that better. So just keep doing that.
Yeah. On behalf of Motorsport Australia, I would really, really thank you for kicking off the start of your day and finishing off our day here in Australia. We really appreciate your time. It's been fascinating and really interesting. And I know the girls that are watching will have got a lot out of this. And I'm sorry we've run a couple of minutes over time, but really appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Todd and Katie.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Keeps. Enjoy your day. Keep in touch, and we'll
You
chat
too.
soon.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see a lot of CVs from you guys soon.
You will.
Sure you will.
Excellent CVs.
Good.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
guys. Good night.
Cheers.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.